Okay, so before we go too far, I want to talk about some of the debugging options that are available to you through freeform application development. So we're going to add some debugging components to our application using the same techniques that we've already used to add input fields to this app. And I'm going to do it through SitePilot. So if you remember, we set up a container, a grid called form fields, where we added our one field. And we'll come back to this later and add some additional fields. But now I'm going to add a new container for debugging. And you don't have to add them into an individual grid, but I find this very useful because it allows me to move my debugging options to the bottom of my application and get the stuff out of the way. So I'm going to say ldebug info. And for starters, I know I'm going to add two parts. So I'm going to set this up in a 24 column mode and 12 columns each. All right, so I'm going to save this. So now I've got a place to put some debugging information. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to add two new gizmos. So I'm going to add one gizmo and then another gizmo. And these gizmos are going to be debugging gizmos. So the first one I'm going to call gdebug-dom. And what this gizmo is going to allow me to do, it's going to allow me to debug the browser DOM. So I'm going to go find my debugging category. And here's debug DOM. And all I have to do is load this gizmo, and then I'll be ready to go with that. Second gizmo I'm going to add is going to be called debug variables. And the reason I want to do this is the variables are going to represent the actual variables in the server-side version of our application. So as we push information back and forth to the cloud, we want to know what we're doing. And we're going to translate everything you collect in your freeform application into real Java objects that we can then interrogate and do all sorts of fun things with. So I'll go grab a debug option here, and you'll see there's lots of other things here. We'll talk about all these other debug options later, but these are two of the very common ones that you're going to use. So I'll load up debug variables. And when I have those two in place, you'll know that I put them in a grid. The grid is set up in a 2-column mode. There are some attributes here on debug variables we'll talk about in a later video. And I simply just save this. So now once it's saved, I can return to my freeform application, and when I refresh it, because I made a change to the application, it automatically resets and rebuilds itself. And you can see I have all this information in a 2-column layout below my form field here. So on the left, this represents my browser DOM, and on the right, this represents server-side DOM. So as I come in and type, you'll see that my browser DOM is going to change dynamically. So you can see I have a field here, which is my gname. It's a string, it's partially complete, and Sumner is the name going in here. Now I don't have anything over in the server-side world yet because I haven't actually left this field. I'm not completed. We don't want to be pushing everything up and finalizing it until we're ready finished. So when I tab out, that's when I add a field here to my server-side DOM, and it's called gname, and it's a string, and its value is correct Sumner. So that's it for debug variables. Simple and easy.